Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anime Dreams, your destination for all things anime. Today, we'll be delving into the fascinating romance between Naruko and Shoto, a truly unique pairing. Disclaimer: the content presented on this channel is intended for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not claim ownership of any anime footage featured in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's dive in. As she pulled her orange hoodie over her head, Naruto could only watch in stunned silence as a large criminal wreaked havoc at the train station. It had been nearly 2 years since she arrived in this part of the world, and the 14-year-old was still unaccustomed to witnessing how some individuals misuse their abilities. Back home, only academy students and ninjas were allowed to use their chakra in public. Although there weren't any formal rules, it was generally understood that civilians lacked the ability to harness chakra. Here, anyone using their quirk publicly was typically a criminal, a vigilante, or a professional hero. Leaning against her foot, she observed a professional hero, whom she recognized as Kamui Wood, swinging between the rooftops with his wood manipulation quirk. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a group of girls and women fawning over his actions, and she couldn't help but wince. Sakura used to make that same infatuated expression whenever Sasuke performed impressive maneuvers or even merely breathed. What prompted him to use his quirk? Naruto inquired of the man beside her. He attempted to steal an elderly woman's purse, the man replied, flinching as the criminal tore the roof off the train station. He got cornered and thought causing a rampage was his only way out. Naruto nodded and glanced at her watch before returning her gaze to the chaos unfolding at the train station. Was she truly going to fret about getting to class on time? Her teacher would already be displeased that she had worn her hoodie to school. What difference would an additional 5 minutes make? It wasn't as if she was habitually late, and the only issue she caused was the presence of her favorite orange jacket. After 2 years in his class, one would think her teacher would understand that her jacket accompanied her everywhere. You didn't just misuse your quirk, you also harmed and robbed someone, Kamui Wood declared coldly. Only someone truly malevolent would do that. Naruto pursed her lips at the hero's words, watching the furious villain continue his rampage. The girls around her were swooning and expressing their admiration for the hero, while the crowd cheered his condemnation. She noticed one of her classmates jumping up and down in excitement. What was so captivating about his words? Kakashi-sensei sounded far more impressive than him. If her former teacher were here, he would have easily captivated everyone's attention. Your punishment is... Suddenly, a towering blonde hero delivered a powerful kick to the villain's chin, interrupting Kamui Wood before he could finish his sentence. The crowd fell silent, while Naruto fought to suppress a laugh. It was amusing to witness someone else stealing the spotlight. Gigantification, huh? It's a common yet formidable quirk, but could the potential for public property destruction limit its application? I suppose that depends on whether she can control her size at will, she thought. As she turned her body, she observed her classmate diligently writing notes in his notebook, his brow furrowed in concentration. Wasn't he the student who often needed protection from their more aggressive peers? She hadn't realized which classmate was observing the altercation until now. Perhaps it was because she found the entire scene rather underwhelming. Honestly, she didn't understand why everyone was so enamored with these heroes' behaviors. Midoriya, it's time for us to head to class, Naruto called to the older boy. She felt her eyebrows twitch when he showed no signs of acknowledging her. Midoriya. Class. Still, there was no response. Sighing, Naruto playfully slapped his shoulder, and grinned as he jumped, letting his notebook slip from his grasp. It was a bit cruel, but she couldn't help but feel frustrated when someone ignored her. In Konoha, people often overlooked her because of the burden she carried, but here, she didn't want attention, yet when she did seek it, she expected it to be acknowledged. You Uzumaki-san, I didn't notice you, Izuku stammered, blushing. Naruto nodded and picked up his fallen notebook. I can see you are more focused on documenting the hero than on the fact that we have only 10 minutes left before we're late for school. Izuku's face turned crimson at her comment, but she merely shrugged it off as she flipped through his notebook. It was filled with detailed observations and sketches, not only of the heroes on television but also of their classmates. She frowned at the meticulous notes he had on his tormentor. "How long did it take you to compile these notes?" she asked, handing back his book while slinging her bag over her shoulder. Izuku blinked in surprise. "Your attention to detail in observing the battles on TV and online is impressive." "It took me about 2 months to fill one notebook," Izuku admitted, rubbing the back of his neck shyly. Naruto let out a low whistle. "You have just one notebook? How many do you own about superheroes?" "T13, came the hesitant response. She turned sharply, taken aback by his admission. 13 notebooks? If he took merely 2 months to complete one, it would have taken him roughly 6 years to compile notes on superheroes and their classmates. Did she ever possess that level of enthusiasm for anything outside of pranks? A memory surfaced of a night spent perfecting the shadow clone jutsu, prompting her to realize that, yes, she had indeed shared that kind of passion. She used to feel exhilarated about being a ninja, but after recent events, she struggled to summon any joy regarding her former aspirations. "Why do you have so many notebooks on superheroes? Some of your notes suggest you've even contemplated strategies to defeat them," Naruto pointed out as they crossed the street toward their school. "It might sound foolish, but I aspire to be a superhero," Izuku confessed. "I know it seems unrealistic for someone without a quirk like me, but I can't help but dream." The blonde-haired girl turned to him, her expression earnest. "I don't think it's foolish to dream big, Izuku. Everyone in this world has grand aspirations, some simply achieve them, while others set them aside. Many are faced with circumstances that force them to abandon their ambitions. As long as you are determined to pursue your dreams, regardless of what others say, you can make them a reality." A wave of discomfort washed over Naruto at her words to Izuku. She too had once dreamt of becoming Hokage, of being the most revered leader, but after what happened with Sasuke, that vision felt increasingly unattainable. A Hokage should fulfill their promises, yet Naruto felt she had failed in that regard. Still, she couldn't bear the thought of Izuku relinquishing his dreams. It was tragic when anyone gave up on what they desired most. She understood this pain all too well, as not a day went by without her heart aching for what she had been forced to sacrifice. As she settled into her seat, Naruto rested her head on the desk, listening to her classmates discuss their weekend plans. While they excitedly chatted about their upcoming adventures, all she could think about was how to persuade her boss to let her work on Sunday. She was performing well academically, so securing extra work hours shouldn't be an issue. She only lifted her head when their homeroom door swung open, revealing their teacher carrying a towering stack of papers. She straightened up and removed her jacket as he began to sort the papers into piles. Was he distributing the forms regarding their future schooling? The way the teacher kept glancing her way suggested he was somewhat displeased with her. "Settle down," he declared, slamming his hands on the desk, which instantly silenced the chatter and drew everyone's attention. "It has been 2 weeks, yet most of you are acting like children. You're in your 3rd year of middle school, and it's time to start thinking seriously about your futures." Naruto noted the disappointment in her teacher's gaze as he emphasized thinking seriously. It appeared he had indeed reviewed the forms they submitted. Until now, she had assumed he was too preoccupied with encouraging them to pursue careers as heroes or doctors to genuinely care about their individual aspirations. "I should probably distribute your career forms, but I suspect nearly all of you want to be heroes," the teacher continued, levitating the papers toward the students. His comment elicited cheers from her classmates, who eagerly displayed their quirks. The middle-aged man shook his head, fixing them with a stern expression. "I know you all possess remarkable quirks, but remember, it's against school rules to use them here." As she rested her head on the table, Naruto reflected on how her classmates frequently utilized shortcuts during class, opting not to lift the whiteboard marker while she cleverly employed her clones. She pondered the purpose of the rules that seemed so easily disregarded. If her use of chakra had been ostentatious, it might have posed a problem, but since that incident, she had made a conscious effort to keep her chakra subdued. It was her desire to stand out and her tendency to zone out during lessons that led her to this predicament. "Sensei, I'm not in the same category as these individuals," a blonde-haired boy shouted, leaning back in his chair. My quirk is far superior to everyone else's. Naruto tuned out the cacophony of her classmates' protests and focused on the one person she found particularly insufferable. From their first encounter, she had sensed an aversion to him, not solely due to his loud demeanor, which she could relate to, but rather because of his self-assured swagger. It further irritated her that he never addressed her by name, choosing instead to call her Whiskers. If I recall correctly, Bakugo, you aspire to attend UA High School, their teacher interjected, lifting a sheet of paper. The classroom fell silent at the teacher's words, the earlier chaos dissipating. The expressions of her classmates shifted from indignation to a blend of fear, apprehension, and respect for the blonde boy. Naruto tilted her head, bemused, wondering why this high school was regarded with such reverence. After all, it was just a school, wasn't it? It's not just any school, Uzumaki. One classmate responded, prompting Naruto to blink in surprise as everyone turned their attention to her. Heat rose to her cheeks under the collective gaze of her peers and teacher, who appeared bemused by her statement. UA High School is the premier institution for aspiring heroes. Their admission standards are so stringent that the cutoff can be as high as 79. Not everyone can gain acceptance. Naruto felt overwhelmed by her classmates' fervor for the school and nodded to indicate her understanding. Her tension eased as Bakugo began boasting about his performance in the mock exams. Honestly, did it matter that she didn't comprehend the significance of this school? Couldn't everyone embody heroism in their unique way? The world often seems so perplexing. If memory serves, didn't you also express interest in attending UA High, Midoriya? Their teacher asked, bringing her back to reality. The class turned to the green-haired boy, who sank further into his chair, laughter erupting at the teacher's remark. Midoriya. He's unlikely to gain admission based solely on his academic performance. A student quipped. Izuku probably has a better chance of getting into UA High than you do, Naruto stated, redirecting attention toward herself. She straightened her posture and narrowed her eyes at the sneering boy. If that school is truly the best, they surely wouldn't accept someone like you, especially considering you barely passed our last exam. The boy scowled at the reminder, and Naruto couldn't help but smile triumphantly, glancing at Izuku, who mouthed a silent thank you. Though they were not close friends, she felt compelled to defend him whenever necessary. His quiet nature reminded her of a steadfast companion who had always supported her. Oi, Whiskers, are you suggesting that someone like Deku could attend the same school as me? Bakugo snapped, drawing her focus back to him. He's quirkless. Naruto glared at him defiantly. Yes, I am suggesting that someone as intelligent as Izuku could indeed attend UA High. While he may lack a quirk, his intellect and character compensate for any deficiencies. Given your aspiration to attend, it's not far-fetched to believe Izuku could also succeed. What exactly are you implying, Whiskers? He challenged, marching toward her desk, prompting groans from their classmates. Naruto smiled innocently. I assumed you were intelligent, but perhaps I misjudged you. It seems you cannot comprehend Japanese, as I was stating that your personality is unfit for a hero. Bakugo growled, lunging toward her desk, but Naruto skillfully evaded him, grasped his arm, and twisted it behind his back. The onlookers exchanged glances, then turned to the bewildered Izuku, who was astonished by the unfolding events. Was it really surprising that she would defend herself against an explosive temper? She certainly didn't want to give their homeroom teacher cause to complain about the chaos. This is a prime example of why I believe you lack the qualities of a hero, Naruto explained slowly, as if addressing a child. A hero should not resort to anger immediately. If I didn't know how to defend myself, I could have been injured, and that's not acceptable. Don't speak to me like I'm a child. Bakugo growled. Raising an eyebrow, she replied, then don't act like one. If you choose to behave like a child, I will address you as your caretaker would. How many times must I remind you not to engage in fighting or use inappropriate language in the classroom? What are you two, uncivilized? Their homeroom teacher admonished, drawing chuckles from the rest of the class. With a frown, The blonde-haired girl released the older boy's hand and returned to her seat, smirking as he rubbed his sore hand while stealing glances at Izuku, who watched them with a perplexed expression. "Now that you've both ceased hostilities, Uzumaki-san, I need you in my office," their teacher instructed, causing a wave of discontent among the students. "We need to discuss the form you submitted." Oh great, her teacher was going to have the talk with her. "Uzumaki-san, why did you submit a blank form regarding your future high school plans?" her teacher inquired as he shut the door. Naruto rubbed the back of her neck, wishing her words would come to her as easily as they seemed to for others. Why was it that when she wanted to express herself, the words failed her, yet when she preferred silence, they flowed freely? She felt her legs tremble as all the teachers in the office focused their attention on her. "Well, Uzumaki-san? I don't know what I want to do," she finally confessed. The homeroom teacher blinked, opening his mouth to respond but then closing it again. For the first time in their interactions, he seemed genuinely at a loss for words. That was a relief. She didn't want to hear a lecture about planning for her future. She was aware of her ambitions, yet they felt unreachable after failing to save her friend. There was no way she could envision a dream that could replace her longing to find Sasuke or her aspiration to become Hokage. "I must admit, I'm surprised to hear this from one of my most capable students," her teacher finally said. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the middle-aged man, who chuckled softly. "Why the surprise? Just because I disapprove of your disregard for school rules doesn't mean I underestimate your intelligence. You have the third highest grade in the entire year, and yet you're unsure of your path. I truly don't know what to say." "Sensei, are you suggesting something specific?" "Bakugo plans to attend UA High to pursue a career as a superhero, and Midoriya aims for the same," her teacher pointed out. "Bakugo has strong prospects, while Midoriya may have a chance in the general education program if he doesn't succeed in the hero portion of the exam. Everyone else in the class has decided their futures, except for you, who possesses the potential to achieve great things." "You're saying that because I have good grades," Naruto replied. "But grades alone don't define a person." Her homeroom teacher nodded in agreement. "That's true, but you have immense potential, Uzumaki, and it would be a shame to squander it by continuing to work full-time in a cafe. You defended Midoriya against Bakugo. Doesn't that inspire you to consider becoming a hero? Or perhaps attending a regular high school and then pursuing a career in law enforcement? It's evident that you have an instinct to protect those who are vulnerable, regardless of your attempts to appear otherwise." Naruto stared at her teacher before looking down at her hands. Others might see soft hands that had never harmed anyone, but all she could recall were the stains of blood that marked her past. How could her hands serve to protect others? She had caused pain to so many, leaving her unworthy of the title of protector. Yet her teacher was right about one thing: she was driven to safeguard those weaker than herself. "I will consider applying to you." She finally replied. If faced with the choice between becoming a hero or a police officer, she would prefer the former for one reason: being a hero would allow her to avoid the painful memories associated with law enforcement. Naruto tucked her hands into her jacket and gazed in awe at the imposing structure of UA High School before her. While many had praised it as one of the finest educational institutions in the nation, they had failed to convey just how colossal it truly was. Its towering presence made her momentarily consider retreating back home, but the image of her teacher's disappointment propelled her forward through the gates. Determined, she fixed her gaze ahead, attempting to tune out the throngs of students buzzing with excitement around her. This was going to be a breeze. Unlike her peers, she brought a wealth of combat experience to the table. Although she had only been a Genin for a year, she had already encountered formidable opponents, including a rogue ninja and even a confrontation with a future Hokage. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was confident she had faced worse. "Whiskers, what are you doing here? Nobody mentioned you were enrolling in the school." The girl with blonde hair felt her lips twitch at the mention of the unflattering nickname. She didn't need to glance around to identify the source. There was only one person who would use such a name. She had hoped fervently that she wouldn't encounter him during the exam. Evidently, her prayers for a calm day had gone unanswered. I hadn't considered attending high school until my teacher informed me that he wouldn't accept my decision, Naruto replied, crossing her legs before turning to face Bakugo. The older boy scowled, prompting her to roll her eyes. Are you suggesting I should argue with him? He has the authority to change my plans, and I'm not willing to risk that just to attend high school instead of working full-time at a cafe. Though the teacher had never explicitly stated he would take away her right to work, Naruto understood he would do so if it meant she would follow his wishes. For reasons she couldn't fathom, he deemed it a waste for her to work full-time in a cafe. Did he genuinely believe she could achieve something greater? Just because she put in effort at school didn't mean she was destined for something grand. If his rationale for her pursuing a career as a hero or police officer was based solely on her defending Izuku, she knew many others would willingly do the same. Sensei was right about one thing, Bakugo remarked. And what might that be? Naruto inquired. You would be wasting your time working in a cafe. Naruto halted, staring at the irritated boy in disbelief. First, her teacher, and now Bakugo, why did everyone think working in a cafe was a poor choice? While it might not be the highest paying job, it provided a sense of tranquility. It may not have challenged her intellect much, but it kept her mind occupied. The thought of attending high school or engaging in fights made her uneasy, as she feared it would trigger her anxiety. Why are you looking at me like that? You can call me rude, but I'm not foolish, Bakugo said. Even a simpleton would agree that working in a cafe would be a waste of your time. I never thought you were foolish, Bakugo, Naruto replied. I just believe you have a poor attitude and tend to be unkind. Why do you keep saying that? He shot back. The blonde-haired girl crossed her arms and spoke slowly. Are you genuinely asking me that? 9 months ago, you told Izuku that if he wanted to be special, he should try harder. Do you understand how hurtful that could be? Do you truly grasp the impact that words can have? Bakugo blinked, and Naruto felt frustrated. Why did she even bother? It was evident that he had no comprehension of how his words could affect Izuku. The boy seemed to have everything: an amazing quirk, supportive parents, and loyal friends. Why did those who were unkind receive so much? Why couldn't kind-hearted individuals receive the same recognition? It was just a joke, and Deku knew that. Bakugo defended himself. Naruto stared at him before shifting her gaze to the clear blue sky. Do you genuinely believe that making fun of someone is a joke? Have you ever considered what might happen if someone is feeling down and hears those words? It only takes a few careless remarks to make someone feel bad about themselves. Bakugo frowned, opening his mouth to respond, but Naruto was too tired to listen. He could argue all he wanted, but it wouldn't change the fact that he had said something hurtful. It only takes a few thoughtless words to make someone feel sad or think about leaving their friends. While the students around her shifted in their seats or engaged in quiet conversations, Naruto pulled her hoodie over her head and stared blankly at the handout that some seniors had distributed for them to review. She felt no need to read it, as she anticipated that the practical portion of the exam would likely involve either rescuing someone or confronting a few villains. Although the concept of heroes could sometimes seem exaggerated, the essence of their roles had remained unchanged. She couldn't help but wonder how some individuals managed to become heroes. Am I the only one feeling nervous about this exam? She heard her seatmate ask, his restlessness evident as he fidgeted. There was nothing particularly remarkable about him, aside from the small scar beneath his right eye and the warmth in his gaze. In fact, Naruto realized she could count the number of students with such warm eyes on one hand. She stuffed the handout into her pocket and shook her head. You're not the only one feeling anxious, Naruto reassured him. Some people just hide their nerves better than others. The boy furrowed his brow. But you don't seem nervous at all, you actually look like the most confident person in this room. She rubbed the back of her neck in response to the boy's observation, casting a glance around the room at her fellow examinees. For the first time, she realized that every person present exhibited some sign of anxiety. Was her own nervousness so apparent? Should she feign anxiety? However, pretending to be nervous about this exam would require too much energy. She had endured the Chunin exams, battled another Jinchuriki, and even been swallowed by a snake. How could this situation possibly be nerve-wracking? Compared to the challenges she had faced, this exam seemed trivial. This exam doesn't define my self-worth, Naruto said, looking up at the ceiling. I've failed so many exams that it's difficult for me to feel anxious about failing now. I'm simply accustomed to it. If I don't pass this exam, I'll brush it off and try again. It's not a big deal for me. You're really admirable, you know that? The boy said, blinking at her with a grin. I wish I could adopt your mindset, but I can't help but worry about the possibility of failing. Naruto offered a weary smile in response to his words, her gaze drawn to the handout in his grasp. Should she have told him that she genuinely didn't care about failing this exam? That she didn't believe she deserved to be a hero? Heroes, in her view, weren't supposed to bear blood on their hands. They were meant to uphold their promises, even at great personal cost. True heroes confronted their challenges rather than running away from them. No, she wasn't destined to be a hero, but she certainly didn't want to disappoint her teacher. You know, if you want to succeed in the practical exam, you shouldn't overthink it, the black-haired boy advised, blinking in surprise. Naruto turned her attention to the platform. Fighting doesn't require much thought, and when it comes to saving people, you need to explore all the ways to help them. You save those who may not realize they need saving because you understand the consequences of an action. Heroes were meant to rescue those who were silently suffering, to confront the nightmares that plagued children enduring abuse. They were not supposed to ignore a child's cries or pretend everything was fine when it clearly was not. My name is Kirishima Eijiro, the boy introduced himself, pulling her from her thoughts. What's your name? Naruto paused for a moment before responding, Uzumaki Naruto. But you can just call me Naruto. Naruto? Did your parents name you after the fish cake or the maelstrom? Kirishima asked as more teenagers began to fill the hall. Maelstrom, Naruto replied, staring vacantly at the empty platform. His question didn't bother her, as she was accustomed to the common quip about her name. As a child, she had insisted to her classmates that her parents had named her after the maelstrom, not a ramen topping. She would shout these words when they teased her about how boyish her name sounded, speculating that her parents must have despised her for it. Naruto had never summoned the courage to ask the third Hokage whether her parents had truly loved her and died or if they had abandoned her, as many claimed. I want to welcome everyone to today's live performance. A man announced, abruptly silencing the hall. Now, can I get a hey from everyone? The audience merely stared at him, unfazed by the lack of response. If anything, the man's smile only broadened. That's perfectly fine, my listeners. I'm here to outline the guidelines for your practical exam. Are you all ready? As the audience remained captivated by the eccentric speaker, Naruto decided to plug her ears. At this rate, she felt she might become deaf from the man's booming voice. Didn't he realize that some people's eardrums were more sensitive than others? Or was it just her? A quick scan of the hall suggested that she might be the only one struggling with the volume. Are you okay? Kirishima whispered. That man is excessively loud, the blonde muttered. Isn't he aware he can communicate through the microphone without resorting to shouting? Now, let me explain how this assessment will unfold. The man exclaimed as the screen behind him flickered to life. In a moment, all of you will engage in a 10-minute mock cityscape exercise. I understand that some of you may be curious about the use of tools, and the answer is yes. You may bring your tools if you have them on hand. Once I conclude my presentation, you must proceed to your designated venue. A murmur rippled through the crowd as participants began to confer with one another, checking to see if they were assigned to the same venue. Naruto stared blankly at her card before tucking it away inside her jacket. What was the point of confirming whether she was in the same venue as her classmates? She didn't feel compelled to collaborate with them, nor was she close enough to warrant sending a text to inquire. There was simply no reason to expend her energy on such matters. Everyone, please settle down and pay attention. The examiner called, regaining the group's focus. The objective of this examination is to accumulate points, which you can earn by utilizing your quirks to neutralize the simulated villains. The point value assigned to each fake villain is proportional to the difficulty of defeating them. It's crucial for each of you to understand that it is prohibited to engage in combat with fellow examinees. We do not permit anyone to adopt an anti-hero stance. Are there any questions? Now, when exactly will this exam begin? Naruto wondered to herself, watching as everyone around her absorbed the instructions. The man had explained everything clearly enough, unusual, since she typically needed an explanation repeated several times before it truly made sense. Yes, I have a question, a boy called out, rising from the seat in front of her. This handout lists no fewer than 4 types of supposed villains. Such an obvious mistake, if it is one, insults the prestige of UA High. Everyone here applied to this school to train as real heroes, not deal with sloppy errors. And you there, with the curly hair. Naruto followed his pointed finger and saw, with a sigh, that he was addressing Izuku. You've been mumbling this whole time, it's distracting. If this is some kind of game to you, leave immediately. Naruto took a steadying breath, reminding herself it wasn't her place to interfere. Just because she defended Izuku before didn't mean she had to shield him from every harsh word. They weren't especially close, and this was her exam, not a place for her to get sidetracked. She was here to prove her own merit. Sharp observation, examinee 7111, the man at the front responded, drawing everyone's attention back. Allow me to clarify the purpose of the 4th villain. Unlike the others, engaging with this villain won't earn points, he's more of an obstacle for you to avoid. If I were you, I'd steer clear of him. Naruto raised an eyebrow, glancing from the handout back to the examiner. Avoid a villain? That felt contrary to the very essence of heroism. Heroes were supposed to confront threats head-on, regardless of the danger, because people's lives depended on it. This was what set true heroes apart, the willingness to act even when the odds were against them. The Hokage had been revered as heroes precisely because they sacrificed their own well-being for the sake of others. As Naruto scanned the group of hopefuls around her, she wondered what drove these kids to pursue heroism. Perhaps she was cynical, but she doubted many were motivated by pure intentions. Maybe they had glamorized ideas about heroism, thinking it came with admiration and respect. If so, they'd likely be shocked when faced with the reality of their first mission. Naruto herself had learned the hard way. Her views on being a shinobi had been naive until her encounter with Haku, a gentle soul bound to a brutal path for someone else's sake. Haku, who had looked at her as a person, not merely another warrior. His death had been the first she'd witnessed, and it had shaped her resolve to become a better shinobi. Begin. Naruto blinked, glancing around to see her fellow examinees wearing puzzled expressions. Did he mean the exam had officially started? Her gaze darted to the gate, which was indeed open. So begin was their cue to start. With a smirk, Naruto sprinted through the gates, leaving the uncertain crowd behind. As long as the gates were open, it was time to earn points by taking down robots. How many points would she need to pass? The examiner hadn't specified, but she suspected the required score would be high, judging by the number of applicants. Only a select few would earn a place here, and her teacher expected her to be one of them. She had no intention of letting them down. Only a select few were admitted to this prestigious high school, and her teacher was determined for her to be one of them. With this goal in mind, Naruto dashed through the artificial city's streets, taking down every robot in her path. While she wasn't certain about her performance on the theoretical portion of the exam, she was confident in her practical abilities. Most of these students had never faced real danger or seen loved ones in harm's way. They hadn't been forced to witness such things, but she had. Since she was 12, she had seen situations that most kids couldn't imagine, and that experience would give her an advantage. Bracing herself, she shifted her right leg back before launching it toward the robot on her right. Failing this portion of the exam was not an option. Despite her struggles as a shinobi, Naruto refused to let anyone believe she was incapable in combat. She wouldn't let her delicate appearance suggest she couldn't protect herself. Today, she would show them the true meaning of strength. You have 6 minutes and 2 seconds remaining. Naruto stopped running as she noticed an examinee struggling to free her leg from the rubble. She glanced around, realizing that none of the other examinees had taken notice. Frowning, she rushed to help. Were they really so self-focused that they missed someone in need? As she knelt down to assist, Naruto couldn't help but wonder if these people understood what it meant to be a hero. Heroes weren't just about taking down villains, even shinobi wouldn't ignore a civilian in distress just to chase after an enemy. They'd defeat the enemy and then help the civilian if needed, at the very least. Stop trying to pull your leg out of the rubble, Naruto instructed firmly. The girl blinked in surprise, and Naruto sighed. If your leg is injured, you'll make it worse. When I lift the rubble, that's when you should crawl out. The girl hesitated, watching Naruto for a moment, then followed her instructions. Naruto took a deep breath, placed her hands on the debris pinning the girl's leg, and lifted it with effort. Her heart pounded, and sweat formed on her arms as the girl carefully crawled out. Once the girl was clear, Naruto released the rubble. "Thank you," the girl murmured. "Is your leg okay?" Naruto asked. Observing the girl wince as she pressed on her leg, Naruto guessed it wasn't. She was uncertain about first aid and had no idea where the infirmary was. Should she find a safe spot for the girl and come back for her? A quick scan of the mock city showed no truly safe areas. Robots were scattered around, with fellow examinees actively dismantling them. What should she do? Then an idea struck her. Without hesitation, Naruto formed the hand signs for the shadow clone jutsu. She didn't have time to go to the infirmary and return for more points, but her shadow clones could lighten the load. Leaving the girl alone wasn't an option. Take the girl to the infirmary, Naruto instructed her clone, who nodded, scooped up the girl, and began to carry her. Wait. Why are you going to such lengths to help me? Aren't you worried about the time you're losing? The girl asked, halting the clone in its tracks. You'll miss out on points. Naruto snorted. Any decent person would help this much. If I want to be a hero, I need to do more, because a hero won't ignore someone in distress. And honestly, who cares about the points? What matters is that you're safe. But your points. The girl protested. Look, I've probably earned plenty already, Naruto replied, turning away. I was the first through the gates, and I've taken down every robot I could find. If you're worried about me passing, I'll be fine. Right now, focus on getting your leg checked, because I don't know first aid. 3 minutes left. Naruto turned and ran, distancing herself from the girl. Why was this girl so focused on points? She had likely already earned 40 or more points, given the number of robots she defeated. What truly mattered was the girl's well-being. Naruto couldn't let herself be responsible for her not receiving the care she needed. Run in the other direction. One of the examinees shouted as others scattered. The 0-pointer is that way, and the examiner was serious when he said to avoid it. You're going to get hurt if you go any further. Naruto paused, meeting his gaze. In a real city filled with people, do you think a hero would just run away? A hero would face any threat, no matter how formidable, because people depend on them. Just because it's dangerous and offers no reward doesn't mean I should turn back. Ignoring any further protests, she charged forward. Did he think she cared about pain? Sasuke nearly risked his life to protect Sakura, fully aware of the dangers posed by Gaara. She had stood against Orochimaru, knowing her chances were slim, all to protect her teammates. If she was truly going to be a hero, then moments like this would define her. With this resolve, Naruto leapt into the air, smashing the massive robot into pieces. Though she hadn't chosen this path, she was determined to embody the values of a true hero. Naruto would be the kind of hero people admired. She would be different from those on television, prioritizing people above all else. She would show the world that she was genuine, proving her worth through her actions and her promises. She would prove it, no matter the cost. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing to my channel for more exciting anime content. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on Anime Dreams. Best regards. Anime Dreams.